Okay. Welcome, John, today's community meeting. For the overall status, for 1.15, we are doing post-FC manual testing, and uh, the planned date for RT1 is on October 11th, and it's about 2 weeks. But for Beijing team, there is only 1 week. I mean, for working because we will have a holiday from October 1st to October 7th. But right now the testing and issue fixes are good on track. That is for 1.15 and for 1.16. We have created a issue tag for the candidate, so feel free to add any issues that that are a candidate for 1.50 as 1.60. That's it. And for the Beijing team members, I think we are working on the post FC manual testing, so nothing special update. And the next one, Scott, please.
Yes, so a couple things. So item block action, the general doc PR was merged. This is the Velero plugin example where we actually have an example plugin and some test data to show how combining two pods into an item block works and how the hooks work before and after. Not crucial, but obviously we want to get it merged before 115 is out, but it's not part of the build, so it's not a huge deal. The second thing is we ran into doing some initial OpenShift testing with 1.15. We realized the new Podify data mover is not working for us. We need the privilege pod so for that. So this PR adds, and there may be other environments as well that requires it. It's also possible that block mode requires it more generally. I'm not sure, but this adds a new flag to installer a node agent that sets the data mover pod to privileged. Similar to what we do with the node agent pod itself. The reason I have a separate flag for it is that once you're on 1.15, a user who uses data mover but not FS backup might need this for data mover pods, but will not need the node agent to be privileged because it's no longer doing actual copying anymore. So that's why it's a separate field. I think we should get this into 1.15 because it's a regression for OpenShift and other clouds that would require this. So
yeah,
look at that.
I just took a look at on the PR, and I think the changes are clear. But one thing is, I think we need to make the root cause of this problem clear, because removing the privilege mode requirement is one of the benefits for the data microservice.
I agree with that. I think we should. I think it's a separate investigation. We should look into what the root cause should be. I think having the configuration is good because there may be other cloud environments that we didn't test on that would require this. This gives them that flexibility. So I think this is a good change, even if we can figure this out. I do know I did my manual testing. On the backup side, when I tried to do a backup without this, I got a permission denied error. The restore worked fine without this, so I don't really know why that was the case. I think we do want to do that investigation, but I think this is a good configurability option because there may be some other cloud that we're not testing with that requires this. This prevents it from being a regression.
Yeah, you know the privilege mode is a powerful option, and but it's the most concerned option by users. So
oh, exactly. No, I agree. It's by default, it's off because, and the thing is that node agent always required privilege mode for OpenShift before, so this is not a regression. Users that use this before are used to this. I agree with you. We want to look into this to figure out if we can get rid of that. I think Tiger had the same comment on this PR. That we want to figure out how to get rid of that need. But in the meantime, this lets us move forward with testing. It'll work, and this gives us an ability for other clouds, that we're not testing with upon 1.15 release, saying, "Hey, this isn't working for me. I'm getting permission denied. Oh, try this option. It'll work." Yeah. So I think I think we should do two things. I think we should review this and possibly merge it, and I think we should also investigate how to fix this. Maybe in 1.15.1 we can fix the need, and then maybe in OpenShift you won't need this anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
since we still have some time for the 1.15, I think we can do the investigation immediately, and hopefully we can find the cause in time, so that because I just thinking if we can find something some options that there is less concern and can also fix the problem, we use that option directly because because this privilege mode, well, you know, uh, it's so concerned, and most of it's some environment will not only need to change or add the privilege mode to the pod, but also need to change add some kind of annotations or like the pod security policy are defined. So we have lots of things and also including changing the document. So uh, mm, so we can just it's better that we can find the root cause and find the most suitable option and directly make it to 1.15.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I know. I just think even if we find the root cause, we still may want this
mm,
because there may be other environments that we didn't test with that'll still need this. That this will prevent them from having a regression. So I think this kind of provides a non-default option to say, oh, okay, a user puts in a report saying, hey, this isn't working.
mm,
Oh, we'll try privilege mode. Does that work? Okay, and then we can because without this, it's impossible to use Velero with those environments right now without fixing the root cause. This provides
mm,
flexibility so that if there's an environment that we didn't test with, that we didn't, because we can't test every environment, I think this is a good non-default option, even if we find the root cause, meaning that ideally we'd figure out, so for example, in OpenShift, we don't need privilege mode, but having the
mm.
option for privilege mode helps users that are an environment that we didn't test with that allows them to still use Velero, and they won't have this regression where they can use 114 but not 115. So I think this is helpful even if we find the root cause.
Yeah. So even though we add this privilege mode, we also need to add the document. So in the document, we also need to tell you the root cause because the user will be confused. We have moved everything. I mean the data paths into the data more into the data more pod. Why do I need the still need the privilege mode? So so uh, possibly find if we, when we find the root cause, we will see that we finally need the privilege mode. But there is another possibility that we find another fix and with a less concerned option, right? So since we still have some time, we can start the investigation.
Yeah, and another
Well,
thing related to this we may want to do is one thing I ran into trying to debug this was because right now the way Velero works, as soon as we get that error, the data upload fails, the pod gets deleted. We may want to provide some debug development option so that it doesn't clean up the pod, so that that gives someone who's investigating the ability to go to the pod and look at the pod logs and investigate. Because right now, where we delete the pod as soon as the error happens, it's kind of hard
mm.
to go investigate, figure out the root cause.
Yeah, I understand. We will also check and troubleshoot this from our product like TKG to see if the same problem happens. And
Yeah,
so finally, I think we should when we or how say supreme mode privilege mode removing if one of the target that we want to achieve for the data move microservice. So here we don't want to add it back directly as an option, and this will confuse users, and this will also uh, this will also it's not our target or achievement is not it's not fully made, right? So even though we have that, we will have that. Finally, we will need the root cause. So that's something I think. Mm,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we
that
definitely want the root cause, and if we can figure out to avoid that for known environments, that's good. My concern still is there may be other environments that we don't test with because we only have we have OpenShift, we have Tanzu, we have other cloud environments that we test with, but there may be other Kubernetes clouds that users of Velero are using that we don't have direct access to, and if they hit these issues, we won't know until after the release. This would give them an option to continue to work while we figure out that root cause, and then in a later release, get a fix for them.
yeah, that I understand. I understand what you mean. But here I have a different opinion because I think this one is something we want to remove, and if we even though we have to add it finally, we need to touch the corner. Why that happened, and so that we can document clearly in the document. Uh, because that's not something in our target or in something for our involvement. Some exception, right? But some exception. So we need to know the code of the exception.
And we can know the cause, hopefully, for again the environments we're testing in. So on the OpenShift side, for example, we need to investigate and figure out why that's happening. I just have concerns that there may be other environments that have similar concerns. For example, I don't know if anyone's tested this with block mode yet, because I know that was one of the comments in the original, node agent requiring privilege mode for block mode. Has the Podify data mover been tested with block mode volumes?
Yeah, it has been tested against a block
Okay.
mode. There's so here uh so for the design target, we want to move this pre mode.
Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I understand that. I just know that again with the current code as it is now, and again I hadn't been able to figure out exactly why yet, but when I tried to do a data mover backup in an OpenShift cluster with the current code from main, what I ran into was permission denied error on the backup. The restore worked fine. So again, I don't know. Again, there may be a difference in the way we're doing it in backup versus restore. But the backup was getting an error here, and maybe it's a simple fix. That would be great. Something we're doing that we can avoid. The restore did not require that, which was nice because maybe again that kind of isolates where the problem may be.
Yeah, great. So for this current PR, we will also review that, and we get prepared for the merge. But hopefully we can get root cause. Because finally we also need a doc change if we merge this PR. So let's do more investigation offline. We will also do that in our own environment.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. So Tycho, please.
Yes. So this week I'm still looking at the design for the microservice. We're looking to investigate performance of local volumes using the data mover microservice. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. That's it from me.
Okay. So Shubham.
I have a draft PR for the backup PVC config E2E, but it's not completed. I had some framework issues last week. I resolved those. I'm able to run the test now. Other than that, I have some fixed PRs, minor fixes. One is validation error message fix, and another is addition of labels to the job maintenance spots. That's it.
Okay. For these two fixed PRs, do you think anyone need to go into the RC or the GA of 1.15?
No, it's fine. Maybe we could backport the error message one at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll remove that. We'll review that.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. And that's for the status. And for the discussion topics, Daniel want to check with check if Red Hat have has some requirement on the backup of Windows cluster than Windows workload. So Scott and Shubham, do you know this?
You mean any customers using Velero for Windows backup and restore?
Yes, and the
Not
Windows workload.
top of my head, no. I don't think I've heard that as a like might be someone might be using, but I'm not aware of it, I think. Wes here.
Yeah, that wouldn't come in from Red Hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do have Windows containers though, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's there, yeah.
Well, and there are virtual machines that are Windows, but still, it's not, you know. So,
So
yeah.
yeah, so you Red Hat doesn't have you know the container solutions or Kubernetes solution based on Windows virtual machines, right? So there is no this kind of requirement, right?
Yeah, OpenShift is never installed on Windows, but Windows can run on OpenShift.
Yeah.
And that that works just fine. And yeah, so I think we would be a biased partner here. We probably aren't going to, we're probably never going to get that in the downstream. And I guess, I don't know if you're asking if we've heard anything about it upstream, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Windows workloads doesn't mean the cluster's on Windows, but it means your pod might be running Windows in a container in a VM. I think we definitely have that, right?
Yeah,
and
we
that
have
works.
Yeah,
That
and
works
that is
fine.
the question here. Use Velero to back up and restore Windows workloads.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of catching up to everyone today. That works from a CNV VM, which is basically just a pod with PVs attached. So what can we help with here?
So it's like pod that are running or a virtual machine that is managed by pod and running Windows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should work.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. Thanks. I will check more with Daniel. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's all for the today's topic. And anything else we want to discuss here?
Did we come to? Can you just summarize the conclusion on the privilege mode thing?
So as I understand it, is the primary concern here is that we really shouldn't be requiring privilege mode. So if I'm hitting permission denied errors, this is kind of a band-aid over the bug rather than figuring out the underlying bug, which is we shouldn't need privilege mode. And I totally agree with that. I think we definitely want to figure that out. There's some disagreement as to whether we still want this in, because my thinking is we can't find all possible bugs. This provides a debugging kind of one-off customer use option. We can have this discussion later, though. It's fine. Versus the idea we should just fix the problems and not allow this, because one of the reasons to go to the Podify data mover is to remove this kind of need. And I think we've seen that on our customer. We have customers have the same concern. We'd love to get rid of privilege mode.
And you were concerned there might be some provider where privileged mode actually is required.
In other words, we found a bug with OpenShift. OpenShift is not working for backup without privileged mode. The concern here is let's find the root cause. Let's fix the code so that even on OpenShift, we don't require privileged mode. I agree with that.
Okay.
I think we still disagree on whether we still want this PR, even if we find the bug. I'm thinking it's a configurability option for customers, support people, in case there's some other cloud that we're not testing on. But that's a separate issue. I think the bigger concern is, hey, before we merge this now, let's try to do some root cause investigation.
And that's for 115.0?
I mean, I would say this, at a minimum for 115, we either have to find the root cause and fix it or submit this PR, because as it is now, the current code on main is broken for OpenShift. data movement.
Sure. Okay.
It's a regression.
I have one quick thought, and I wonder how folks would respond to this. Would it be reasonable to have, just in case, to your point, we don't know what we don't know about other clouds and environments, have privilege mode not default, but considered kind of like a feature that we deprecate over 2 cycles?
I mean, that's kind of what this PR does, though, without deprecation. I mean, without deprecation, because the idea of introducing a new feature that's deprecated from day one is a little weird. But aside from that question, this PR does in fact provide it as an option. It does not set the option by default.
Yeah, I understand that. But if we found the root cause for OpenShift, well, and maybe if there's a cloud that does have a problem, that's just a Sev1 bug, and then we go and try and fix it. That's the other alternative.
That's another possibility, sure.
Okay.
The immediate point is, before we release 1.15, we either need to find the root cause and fix it without needing privileged,
Okay.
or we need to enable privileged. One way or another, we have to have OpenShift working with this. You know, and this PR does that, but in kind of a clumsy way, because we don't want to have to enable privileged. But if we can find that root cause, figure out where that permission denied error is coming from, change the code to no longer require whatever that was doing, that's better. I think that was the point made.
Yeah.
We really want to do that.
I agree.
And I think the idea was, let's be cautious. We still have some time, because RC1 is not until October 11th. If we can find the root cause before the 11th, then we don't need to merge this right now.
Okay.
That's correct me if I'm wrong. That's my understanding of where the discussion went.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
I think on
Sorry. Sorry to extend the meeting then.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you for the
worries.
summary, Scott.
I
appreciate
think
it.
it sounds like on the Broadcom side, they're gonna do some investigation to look at the code to figure out where there might be some issues. On our side, on the OpenShift, we need to do some more testing and investigation to see if we can identify what's going on here, because we always have the OpenShift clusters available.
Yes, Scott. So you have narrowed down the problem with the backup. I think
exactly. Yeah, I did narrow it down. Restore is fine. Backup is where I'm seeing the problem. So that gives us a limited. Let's look at things that are different between backup and restore. Obviously, one's reading, one's writing. That's one difference. There may be some other trivial differences, but that helps us narrow down where this problem may be.
For the further troubleshooting, I think you can just remove some field from the backup pod spec. I mean, in the exposure when creating the backup pod, and see if that work without the pre-mod, and finally we can find which option or field make that.
Yeah, it could be pod options difference. There also could be something we're doing in the code itself with copier, with the file system that's different. But we just have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, and we also test in our internal environment, and hopefully we can find the root cause.
Yep.
Otherwise, we will have more things to do in the document besides this PR.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think this is a backup. This is kind of, at a minimum, this plus documentation will prevent the regression. But if we can find the root cause that doesn't require privilege mode, that's better for our customers anyway, because they don't want to have to set up privilege mode here.
And also, I have one more question about, since you had just mentioned we only need this for backup. So I see in the PR you have changed for both the backup and restore, right?
Well, and again, that's because, again, I'm only seeing this in OpenShift. My concern is more general. What if someone else in some other cloud environment hits this issue? Maybe their problem is backup and restore. The other possibility is having separate backup and restore configuration options. I figured that was more complicated. I didn't want to mess with that.
Yeah, I got you. So your point is like this is one option, one last option that make everything work for the cases that we don't know, we haven't touched. So we just give users this option.
Right.
But yeah, I think we can discuss this offline further, because I think even we have this finally that we can fix some problem. We have to use the triple mode. We want to narrow the usage for the in the place that it is required indeed. We don't want it as a a general option because from the design target, this is something to be removed. But
That's fine. I think we'll just have to we don't have all the environments, but if a bug does come in on this, I think it'll be important for all of us as a community to treat it as a Sev 1 and try and get it fixed as soon as possible if there is
And the
something
other thing about backup versus restore, and I was just testing, basic test workload, with container environment. I haven't done any testing with VMs yet. For example, it's possible that on the VM side, sorry, not VMs, but VMs with block mode specifically. Block volumes is kind of got a different code path for some of this. Block volumes on the
we can look at that tomorrow, Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
That
fine.
my point is that the current code needs the privilege for OpenShift file system volumes on backup and not restore. I don't know yet about block volumes, whether there's an issue on the restore side or it's just on the backup side there, because I haven't tested that yet. My testing has been.
Yeah, I have verified the basic case for the block mode volumes, but I didn't touch the thing like pod like the VM, like the KubeVirt, something like that. So you can just verify it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely do some testing there.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there's two things. There's testing without any of these changes. Just does it work? We already know the backup side does not work on OpenShift yet until we find the root cause. And then there's the question of, again, with the whole KubeVirt, VM, block mode, any of those options, does that change where this breaks, or is it the same situation? We don't know that yet, but we can do some testing.
Yeah, for any change of the current PR, we can state according to the root cause we found. Maybe we so for the scope, for the scope of this option, or whether we need to document that, we can just decide that after we find the root cause. So hopefully we can find that. Okay. Thanks. And anything else? Okay. Thanks. And I think we can finish the meeting here today. Thanks for joining. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.